I didn't think that trip would change anything. We had done things like that before. Not exactly the same, not something this big, but close enough. There were 4 of us, me, Ethan, Marcus, Ryan. We weren't reckless idiots chasing ghosts. At least, that's what we liked to tell ourselves. We were urban explorers, or that's what Ethan called it. We filmed abandoned places, old factories, schools, warehouses. Nothing illegal, nothing destructive. Just documenting forgotten places before they collapsed completely. Marcus handled cameras. Ryan handled research. Ethan handled talking. I handled planning. And this time the plan was ambitious. The building was an abandoned coastal hospital complex about 3 hours away, closed after structural damage and flooding nearly a decade ago. The first 2 floors had partially collapsed and filled with water after the drainage system failed. The upper floors were still accessible, at least according to old forum posts. It wasn't some creepy urban legend site. It was real. Massive, concrete, 6 floors above ground, 2 partially flooded below. And for years, no one had properly explored it. Ryan found it first. He sent the location to our group chat with a single message. "Boys, this is it." We met at Ethan's place the night before leaving. His apartment always smelled like coffee and dust. He had maps printed out across the table, screenshots from satellite images, old evacuation blueprints someone had uploaded years ago. Ryan was pacing, like always. He never sat still when he was excited. "You realize how big this place is?" he said. "This isn't some warehouse. This is a full medical complex." Marcus adjusted his glasses and zoomed into one of the floor plans on his laptop. "First 2 floors are partially submerged," he said calmly, "which means lower hallways might be underwater." Ethan grinned, "Which means it's cinematic." I remember looking at them and feeling that familiar mix of anticipation and caution. We had rules. We never split up too far. We never stayed past midnight. We never entered structures that looked unstable. And if anything felt seriously wrong, we left. That was always the rule. The drive there was quiet at first. 3 hours of highway, gray sky, low clouds. The kind of weather that makes everything look drained of color. Marcus drove. Ethan sat in the passenger seat, talking about future plans for the channel. Ryan was in the back with me, scrolling through archived articles about the hospital. "There were lawsuits," he said at one point. "For what?" "Structural negligence, flood damage, something about a collapsed wing." I glanced at him. "Anyone die?" He hesitated. "Officially? No." That word stuck with me. Officially. We reached the coast around early afternoon. The hospital stood further inland than I expected. Massive, concrete exterior stained by years of salt air and neglect. Broken windows like missing teeth. Sections of the lower structure darkened where water damage had spread upward. It wasn't small. It wasn't some cute abandoned building. It looked like a forgotten city block. Marcus let out a low whistle. "Okay, that's bigger than the photos." Ethan was already filming. "Ladies and gentlemen," he said dramatically into the camera, "today we explore one of the largest abandoned medical facilities on the coast." Ryan laughed. I didn't. I was studying the structure. The main entrance doors were boarded up, but one side access point had been forced open long ago. Inside, the air changed instantly. Cooler, damp. It smelled like old concrete and something metallic underneath. Water damage was visible immediately. The lower stairwell down to the first floor was partially flooded, murky water reflecting broken light from above. But the ground-level corridor ahead of us was dry, long, silent. Rows of doors on either side. Reception desk overturned. Dust thick enough to show every footprint. Marcus turned on one of the mounted lights he'd brought. "All right," he said. "We stick together." Ryan nodded. Ethan grinned. I took one last look behind us before stepping fully inside. The echo in that place was strange. Not loud, just delayed. Every footstep felt slightly late returning to you. We moved slowly through the ground floor. Patient rooms, supply closets, a collapsed ceiling section where rainwater had seeped in for years. Nothing supernatural, nothing dramatic, just abandonment. And yet, there was something heavy in the air, like the building hadn't fully emptied. Ryan stopped at one point and crouched near the floor. "Look at this. Fresh footprints, not ours. Barely visible, but recent enough to disturb the dust." Ethan leaned in. "Other explorers." "Maybe," Ryan said. Marcus stood up and scanned the hallway. "We're not the only idiots with cameras." We laughed. That helped. For a while. We decided to check the flooded section next. Not fully enter it, just see how bad it was. The stairwell leading down smelled stronger. Damp. Stagnant. The waterline started about halfway down the steps. Dark. Still. Reflective. Ethan crouched and dipped a flashlight beam into it. You couldn't see the bottom. Ryan frowned. "How deep do you think that is?" Marcus shrugged. "Could be a few feet, could be more." I stared at the surface. It wasn't moving. No ripples, no disturbance, just flat black. "Okay," I said. "We're not going in there yet. Let's explore upper floors first." Everyone agreed. We moved back toward the main staircase. That's when we realized Ryan wasn't behind us. I turned. He had been right next to me seconds ago. Now he wasn't. "Ryan?" I called. No response. Ethan laughed lightly. "Dude, stop wandering." Marcus checked his phone. No signal. I walked back down the corridor we had just come from. "Ryan!" My voice echoed too long. Still nothing. Then, footsteps. Somewhere deeper in the hallway, fast. Then silence. We froze. Marcus looked at me. "That was him, right?" It had to be. We moved together toward the sound. Every step felt louder now, every shadow deeper. And that was the moment something shifted. Not dramatically, not with a scream, just a small change in the air, like the building had noticed we were inside. We turned the corner. The corridor was empty, but Ryan's flashlight lay on the floor, still on, pointing at a closed door. And that door was slowly moving, just slightly, as if something had brushed against it from the other side. We didn't think monster. Not yet. We thought, he's messing with us. He's trying to scare us. We stood there longer than we should have. No one said it out loud, but the energy had shifted. Ryan wasn't pranking us. He wasn't hiding behind a door holding back laughter. He was just gone. Okay, I said finally. We're not splitting up again, not for any reason. Marcus nodded immediately. Ethan hesitated, then forced a grin. Yeah, sure, safety rules. But his voice was thinner now. We moved deeper into the fourth-floor corridor. The air felt heavier up here, less airflow, less light. Even the broken windows didn't seem to let much in. Our footsteps echoed in a way that felt wrong, not louder, just delayed, like the building was repeating us a second too late. I heard it again, that dragging sound, slow, wet, controlled. Somewhere ahead, not loud enough to panic, just loud enough to be deliberate. Marcus stopped. You heard that. It wasn't a question. Ethan lifted his flashlight higher, sweeping the beam across the ceiling and down the walls. Nothing. Peeling paint, collapsed tiles, empty door frames. Could be animals, Ethan said. Animals don't drag like that, Marcus replied quietly. We kept walking, step by step. The corridor stretched farther than it should have. The layout of this building was massive. This wasn't some small coastal clinic. It had once been a full psychiatric facility. Multiple wings, patient housing, operating rooms, storage levels. We had only seen a fraction. And suddenly that fact felt less exciting and more like a mistake. I felt my phone buzz in my pocket. All three of us jumped. I pulled it out. No signal. But the battery indicator had dropped from 60% to 9 in seconds. That's not possible, I muttered. Marcus checked his. 7%. Ethan's was already dead. No signal. Draining batteries. No Ryan, Marcus said slowly. This is getting real. We reached an intersection in the corridor. Left wing, right wing. Stairs ahead, leading up one more level. And then we heard it. Clear this time. A wet exhale. Not wind. Not building noise. Breathing. Slow. Measured. Close. Don't move. Marcus barely moved his lips when he said it. The breathing shifted. Not toward us. Past us. Somewhere behind. I felt something change in the air. Not temperature. Not sound. Presence. The kind that makes your skin tighten. We turned slowly. Our flashlights moved in unison. And for a split second, something low to the ground crossed the beam. Too fast to register details, but I saw the outline. Long limbs, bent wrong, not upright, not human posture. It disappeared into a side room. Ethan swore under his breath. That's not Ryan. No one argued, because we all knew. My brain still tried to find logic. Someone else exploring, another group, drug addicts living here, anything. But the movement wasn't right. It hugged the floor, and it moved like it belonged here. We backed toward the stairwell, slowly, not running. Running would mean panic. Panic meant mistakes. And something told me mistakes would matter here. A door slammed somewhere down the hall.
We flinched, but no footsteps followed, no chase.
Just silence. Heavy, watching silence. Up, Marcus said. We climbed to the 5th floor. Dry, dustier. Windows mostly intact. For the first time since entering the building, we were above the waterline entirely. And that mattered, because whatever we saw, it had come from below. We stopped inside what looked like an old staff lounge. Furniture overturned, but the structure was intact. Solid floor, no visible damage. Ethan leaned against the wall, breathing harder now. What the hell was that? No one answered, because saying it out loud would make it real. I moved toward the window and looked down. The flooded levels were invisible from here, just dark openings. Still, calm. Too calm. And then, a ripple. Not from wind, from within. Something disturbing the surface from underneath. It wasn't alone. Another ripple, parallel, moving. Marcus stepped beside me. You see that too? Yes. Ethan shook his head. They can't be in the water. He said it like a rule, like something he needed to be true. We heard it again, but this time, above us, on the roof, a scraping, multiple points of contact, not one, several, slowly shifting weight. That's when I realized something. The water wasn't just where they lived, it was where they started. And they didn't stay there. They were moving through the building, systematically, like they knew the layout, like they had done this before. Marcus whispered, "We need to leave. Now." And for the first time, no one suggested finding Ryan first, because deep down, we understood something horrible. If he was still here, he wasn't hiding. And if he wasn't hiding, then something else had already found him, and we were still inside its territory. We didn't run. That's the part that still haunts me. We should have. But fear does strange things. It slows you down, makes you careful, makes you believe that moving quietly will somehow make you invisible. "Stairs," Marcus said. "Front stairwell, straight down and out." We left the lounge in a tight formation. No more spreading out. No more curiosity. Just survival. The 5th floor hallway felt different now. Not abandoned. Occupied. Like something had passed through recently. The dust on the floor wasn't untouched anymore. There were streaks. Long, uneven trails through the dirt. Not footprints. Drag marks. Low to the ground. Ethan saw them too. Those weren't there before. He was right. We had walked this corridor minutes ago, and it had been clean. Now the dust was disturbed, as if something had crawled through while we were inside that room. "They're hurting us," Marcus muttered. I didn't want to believe that, but the thought wouldn't leave. The roof scraping had stopped. The hallway behind us was silent. Too silent. We reached the stairwell door. Marcus pushed it open slowly. It creaked. The sound echoed down the stairwell like a gunshot. We froze, listening. Nothing answered. We stepped inside. The stairwell spiraled downward through the center of the building. Concrete walls, rusted railings.
Old emergency lights long dead. Our flashlights bounced off the walls, and that's when I noticed it. On the concrete wall beside the stairs, smears, dark, long, finger width, as if something with wet hands had climbed upward. "Don't," Ethan whispered, but I was already looking closer. The smear wasn't dirt. It was darker than that, thicker, and it ran upward, not down. Whatever made it had been climbing. We descended carefully, one step at a time. 4th floor landing, empty. 3rd floor landing. That's when we heard it again, from below. A splash. Not loud, but unmistakable. Water. Marcus swore under his breath. "They're not just on the roof. They move between levels," I said quietly, "and they're faster than us." We kept going. 2nd floor. This was where the flooding started. The bottom of the stairwell was submerged.
The first few steps disappearing into black water. The beam of my flashlight barely pierced the surface. The water was still. Too still. Something shifted beneath it. Not breaking the surface, just movement. Circling. Ethan stepped back. No way. We're not going through that. Marcus scanned the landing. "There's another stairwell on the west wing. That means going back across the 4th floor," Ethan said. Silence. None of us liked that option, but stepping into that water, that wasn't an option either. "West wing," I said. We climbed back up to the 4th floor. The corridor looked the same, but it felt closer now. The air tighter, like the walls had shifted inward. We moved faster this time, not running, but not slow. Halfway down the corridor, a door ahead of us creaked open, on its own. We stopped. The room beyond was dark, too dark. Our beams didn't seem to reach the back wall. Ethan swallowed. "Wind. There are no windows in that room," Marcus said. The dragging sound came from inside. Slow, intentional, closer to the doorway. I felt my pulse in my ears. This wasn't random movement. This wasn't chaos. It was controlled, measured, like something wanted us to see the door open, wanted us to hear it. Then, a shape moved inside the darkness, low, close to the floor. The beam caught something pale, not skin like ours, smoother, tighter, stretched. It disappeared instantly, too fast to focus on details, but enough. Enough to confirm they weren't human. Ethan stumbled backward. Marcus grabbed him before he fell, and then, from behind us, another dragging sound, closer than before. We turned. Too late. Something shot across the hallway behind us, not attacking, just cutting off the path we had come from, blocking retreat. "They're pushing us," Marcus said, and he was right. The only direction left, forward, toward the west wing. We moved, faster now, adrenaline overriding caution. Door slammed somewhere behind us, echoing. Not random, timed. We reached the west stairwell. Marcus threw it open. We rushed inside, and that's when it happened. Ethan was the last through the door. He screamed. I turned in time to see something pale wrap around his ankle. Not a hand like ours. Longer fingers, too many joints. It pulled, hard. Ethan crashed to the floor, his flashlight spinning away. "Grab him!" I shouted. Marcus dropped and caught Ethan under the arms. I grabbed his wrist. We pulled. The thing pulled back. And I saw it. Just for a second. A head rising from the darkness of the lower stairwell. No visible eyes. Or, if there were, they were too small to see. Its mouth opened wider than it should have. Not a roar, not a scream, just a wet exhale. The grip tightened. Ethan screamed again. Marcus shouted something I didn't understand. And then I kicked, hard, blindly. My foot connected with something soft but solid. The grip loosened, just enough. We yanked Ethan upward. The fingers slipped away, disappeared back down the stairwell. We slammed the door shut, locked it, and backed away from it together. Ethan was shaking violently, his ankle red, bruised, but intact. No bite marks, no broken skin, just pressure, like something had tested him. "They could have taken him," Marcus whispered. "Yes," I said, "and they didn't." That realization was worse, because it meant they were choosing when to attack, choosing when to let us go. And the longer we stayed, the more chances they had to change their minds. We stood on that landing, breathing hard. No one spoke for almost a full minute. Ethan was sitting against the wall, clutching his ankle. His hands were shaking. Not violently, but enough. "It didn't pull," he whispered. "It held." That detail didn't leave my head. It didn't drag him down. It didn't thrash. It held him, like it was waiting. Marcus ran a hand over his face. "They're not just attacking," he said quietly. "They're testing." I nodded. First, Thomas disappeared. No scream, no blood, just absence. Then they started hurting us. Sounds above, movement below. Open doors where there shouldn't be any. Now, contact, but not a kill. "They're learning," I said. And that thought was worse than anything else. The west stairwell led down to the 3rd floor, but below that it vanished into black water. We checked through a cracked door. The surface was still, too still. "Up," Marcus said. "To the roof?" Ethan whispered. "Higher than the water line. They don't stay long on dry levels." He was right. On dry floors they moved differently, faster, sharper, but only for short bursts. Water was their domain. Up here, they were visitors. We climbed. 6th floor, 7th. The building was enormous. Each level stretched like a hospital wing. Hundreds of doors, broken windows, rusted carts tipped over in hallways, old directories scattered across the floor. It used to be some kind of research facility. Then it was shut down. Then it flooded, and nobody cared what was left inside. Until now. On the 7th floor we heard footsteps. Not dragging. Footsteps. Clear. Human. We froze. "That's not possible," Ethan breathed. The steps passed through the adjacent corridor. Stopped. "That's not them," Marcus whispered. "They don't walk like that." The steps resumed, and then... "Help!" A voice, human, hoarse.
"Thomas?" I said before I could stop myself. Marcus grabbed my shoulder. "No." The voice came again, fainter, further down the hall. We looked at each other. It was a trap, but the mind wants to believe. If Thomas was alive, if he'd been hiding. "Damn it," Ethan exhaled. And we moved, slowly. We had no weapons, just flashlights and a length of rebar Marcus picked up downstairs. The voice grew weaker, like someone retreating, turning a corner. We quickened our pace.
Then my bean caught something on the floor. Footprints. Bare, wet, but not human. Too many toes. The voice cut off, instantly. Silence. We reached the end of the corridor. Nothing. No doors, no place to hide. Just a shattered window. Cold air drifting in. They know what we respond to, Marcus said. And that was the worst part. They were watching, remembering, using what mattered to us. On the 8th floor, we found an office with a metal door and a working bolt. The first space that felt sealed. We went inside, locked it, turned off the lights. Darkness, only breathing. Then we heard it. Outside, in the corridor. Slow footsteps. Not dragging, not splashing. Footsteps. They were copying the sound, almost perfectly. Almost. But something was wrong. The intervals, too even, too precise, like playback. The steps stopped directly outside the door. Silence. Then, very slowly, something scraped across the metal. A long, deliberate sound. And then, a soft exhale, right on the other side. Ethan covered his mouth. Marcus gripped the rebar so tight his knuckles turned white. I didn't move. And in that moment I understood something. They weren't just hunting. They were playing, testing limits. And if we cracked, if we opened, if we answered, if we believed the voice, that would be the end. The steps retreated, slowly, then faded. We waited another 10 minutes. No one spoke. No one moved. "They're not in a rush," Marcus whispered. "They don't need to be." I checked my watch. Less than 2 hours since we entered. It felt like days. Then the building trembled. A deep, low vibration rolled through the walls. Somewhere below, water began to move. Louder, closer. We looked at each other. "The level's rising," Marcus said. And suddenly it made sense. They didn't just emerge from the water. They could shift it. If that was true, dry floors wouldn't stay dry. "We need the roof." The highest point left, while we still had one. We slid the bolt back, opened the door. The corridor was empty, but the floor was wet. Minutes ago, it had been dry. That meant only one thing. They had already been here, and they had let us sit in that room while they waited, while they decided who to take next. Good. We continue. Same tone, same pacing, no rush. Emotions placed naturally. The roof felt safe. That's the first thing I remember thinking when we pushed the heavy metal door open and stepped out into the night air. Fresh wind hit my face, cold, real, clean. After hours inside that drowned concrete maze, it felt like stepping back into the world of the living. Marcus leaned over, hands on his knees, breathing hard. "Okay," he said. "Okay. We're fine. We just need to calm down." Ethan didn't answer. He walked toward the edge of the roof and looked out over the flooded district. The city lights reflected in the black water below. Entire streets swallowed, buildings rising like broken teeth. For a moment, it was almost peaceful. Almost. I forced myself to think logically. Thomas fell, or slipped, or got disoriented in the dark. We heard something because sound travels strangely in flooded structures. We panicked. That was it. That had to be it. "We're going back down," Marcus said finally. "But slow. Together. No splitting up." I nodded. Ethan still didn't look at us. "You saw the footprints too," he said quietly. I didn't answer. We all did. Bare footprints. Wet. Too long. Too narrow. Leading away from where Thomas vanished. But no drag marks. No splash. Just gone. "We can't just leave him," Ethan said. His voice cracked on the last word. That's when I realized something. This wasn't about content anymore. Not about exploring. Not about proving anything. This was about guilt. And none of us were ready to admit that maybe Thomas wasn't alive anymore. We went back inside. The stairwell down from the roof was dry. Higher level. No flood damage. For a while it felt almost normal. Dust, broken glass, rusted doors. No water, no smell, no sound. "See?" Marcus whispered. "Nothing." That's when we heard it. A single step. Not below, above. We froze. Ethan looked up toward the ceiling. Another step. Slow. Measured. Then silence. "There's no floor above this," Marcus said. He was right. We were at the top. There was nothing above us but the sky, and yet we heard movement. I swallowed. "Echo," I said. "Wind. Metal shifting. Anything but the truth." We moved carefully down one level, still dry, still silent. Then Marcus stopped. He pointed. On the dusty floor ahead of us, wet footprints, fresh, leading across the hallway. But this time, they didn't lead away from us. They stopped, right in the middle of the corridor, as if something had stood there, waiting. Ethan exhaled sharply. "That's not possible." Marcus stepped forward. "I'm done pretending," he said quietly. "This isn't Thomas. This isn't some homeless guy." He didn't finish the sentence. He didn't need to. We all knew what he meant. Something else was in this building. Something that didn't belong here. Something that moved between water and dry levels. "We go down together," Marcus said. "Find Thomas, then we leave." We kept descending, level by level, closer to the flooded floors. The air grew heavier again, damp, thick. And then we heard it again. Not footsteps, dragging, soft, across concrete, behind us. We spun around. Nothing. But the sound continued. Not from one direction, from several.
like something moving through pipes inside the walls, parallel to us, tracking. Ethan's breathing became shallow. "They're not random," he whispered. That word hit me. They, plural. Before I could respond, something slammed against a metal door down the hallway. Once, twice, hard. Marcus flinched. "Run," he said. We didn't argue.
We ran down the stairwell 2 levels at a time, and that's when Ethan screamed. I turned just in time to see it. A shape burst from the darkness of the corridor above. Long, low, moving on all fours. Not fast like a sprint, fast like a spider. Ethan stumbled on the stairs. It reached him before we did. Its arm shot forward. Too long, too thin. It grabbed his ankle. He slammed face first onto the steps. "Help!" he shouted. I lunged forward and grabbed his arms. Marcus tried to pull him up. The thing didn't growl, didn't roar. It didn't make any animal sound at all. It just pulled, silent, strong, like it had all the patience in the world. Ethan's nails scraped concrete as we dragged him upward. For a second, just a second, I saw its face. Not a monster, not a corpse, just something wrong. Skin stretched too tight over bone, mouth slightly open, eyes unfocused, as if it didn't see us, only sensed. And then another shape appeared behind it. Then another. 3, moving in coordination, not attacking wildly, blocking, herding. Marcus let go. "I can't." The grip tightened. Ethan screamed again, and then he was gone, dragged down the stairwell. No splash, no dramatic struggle, just silence swallowing him. Marcus and I stood frozen, breathing hard, listening. Nothing. No footsteps, no water, no voice. "They're not just in the water," Marcus whispered. "No," I said. "They're using it." That's when we understood. The flooded floors weren't a prison. They were a highway. And the dry levels were hunting ground extensions. They didn't stay long outside water, but they didn't need to. They just needed seconds. Marcus backed up slowly. "We can't go down anymore." He was right. Going toward the water meant going toward them. But staying higher didn't mean safety either. They could climb. We had seen that. We moved toward a maintenance corridor, metal door, narrow passage, maybe an exit. Marcus pulled it open. Inside, darkness. The smell of old insulation. And something else. Wet air. Before either of us could react, something moved inside that corridor. Too close, too sudden. Marcus barely had time to turn his head. It came from the ceiling, dropped silently, wrapped around him. He didn't even scream. It covered his mouth with one hand and dragged him backward into the dark. I lunged forward, too late. The door slammed shut. And I heard them. Not growling, not roaring. Breathing. Close. Multiple. Surrounding. I stepped back slowly. Every survival instinct screaming. Don't run blindly. Don't panic. They herd, they coordinate, they isolate. And now, I was alone. The building felt bigger than ever, and suddenly, much, much smaller. They didn't need to rush. They had time. I didn't. I had one thought. Get higher. Not roof, not stairs. Somewhere sealed, somewhere dry, somewhere they couldn't pull me into shadow in seconds. Because now I understood something clearly. They didn't just attack. They tested, they measured, and they waited until you were alone. And now, I was exactly where they wanted me. We're escalating. I was alone. The building felt different now. Not louder, not more violent, just patient. Like it had already decided how this would end. I stayed on the 5th floor for almost 20 minutes without moving, just listening. The water below shifted slowly against the concrete walls, not splashing, not rushing, just moving. They were still down there, waiting. I kept replaying everything in my head. Thomas disappearing without a sound. Ethan dragged on dry ground. Marcus taken near a ventilation shaft. They weren't random. They weren't chaotic. They hunted with structure. And then it clicked. They weren't just coming from the water. They were navigating it, using it, like a second nervous system. The flooded floors weren't an accident. This place had been partially submerged for years. The lower levels sealed off after structural damage.
No one pumped it out. No one monitored it. A closed ecosystem. Dark, undisturbed, perfect. I remembered something Marcus had said when we were outside. He joked that this building used to be some kind of hydro-engineering research facility before it was abandoned. Water pressure testing, underground reservoirs, drainage systems. At the time, it sounded like trivia. Now, it felt like context. If something had lived down there long enough, adapted to that darkness, adapted to moving silently through submerged corridors, it wouldn't need eyes. It wouldn't need speed. It would need coordination. And they had it. That's when I realized something else. They didn't attack immediately when we arrived. They observed. Thomas vanished only after we split up. Ethan died only when he ran. Marcus was taken near airflow ducts connected to the flooded floors. They were isolating us, herding, not chasing blindly, thinking. My stomach tightened. They weren't monsters in the cinematic sense. They were territorial, and we had walked into their territory. But there was one more pattern. They never stayed long on dry floors. Every time one appeared, it retreated fast, almost urgently, like it couldn't maintain itself away from moisture for too long. That was it. That was the rule. They needed the water, not just to move, to survive. They could climb, they could crawl, but they couldn't remain dry, not for long. I stood up slowly. If they depended on the flooded levels, then the higher I went, the weaker their advantage became. But the top floors had no roof access, just broken windows. Unless the maintenance tower. There had been a small service structure connected to the roof. I remembered seeing it when we circled the building earlier. If I could reach the roof and cross to the external stairwell, I wouldn't have to pass back through the main corridors. The problem? To get there, I had to cross the central staircase, the one directly above the flooded shaft.
I didn't have many options left. I grabbed a broken metal rod from the hallway, not as a weapon, as something solid to hit surfaces with. If they sensed vibration, maybe I could manipulate it. I stepped into the stairwell. Dark, concrete, cold air rising from below. I hit the railing hard. Clang! The sound echoed downward. The water shifted. Then movement, fast. I hit the railing again. Clang! And then I heard it. Scraping. Multiple points. They were coming. Not charging. Climbing. From below. I didn't wait. I ran up. 2 floors. 3. Behind me, something dragged across the wall. A wet friction sound. Not running. Crawling. By the time I reached the final landing, my lungs were burning. I slammed the rooftop door open and stepped into open air. Cold wind. Silence. For a moment, I thought I'd made it. Then I saw it. One of them. Already there. Not standing. Clinging to the side of the rooftop access wall. It must have climbed externally. It didn't move. It just tilted slightly, listening. Up close, it wasn't grotesque. It was wrong. Its limbs too elongated, skin stretched tight, almost translucent in moonlight. No visible eyes, just a smooth upper face. Breathing slow, measured. It shifted forward slightly, testing the dry surface. Its movements were weaker now, less fluid. I stepped backward toward the maintenance tower. If it lunged, it would have to cross open, dry concrete, and that would cost it. It moved. Fast, but not as fast as before. Halfway toward me, it faltered. Its grip lost tension. Its movement became unstable. I grabbed the metal rod and struck the ground in front of it. The vibration echoed through the rooftop slab. It recoiled violently, as if the shock traveled through its body. That confirmed it. They navigated through structural resonance, through water pressure, through connected surfaces. But here, isolated, dry, elevated, they were exposed. I struck the ground again, harder. It jerked backward. Then something I didn't expect. It retreated. Not in fear, in survival. It crawled to the roof edge and disappeared over the side, back toward the lower flooded levels. I didn't waste time. I crossed to the maintenance structure, forced the external ladder, and climbed down the side of the building. When my feet hit the ground outside, I didn't stop moving. I kept walking until the building was small behind me, until the sound of water wasn't in my head anymore. I reported the incident anonymously. Weeks later, I checked. The site was sealed. Flooded floors scheduled for drainage. Inspection teams assigned. I don't know what they found, but I know this. They were never supernatural. They were adaptive. They were territorial. And they followed one rule: stay close to the water. If you ever enter a place where the lower levels have flooded, if you hear movement traveling through pipes, if the air feels damp when it shouldn't, don't go higher. Go outside, because elevation buys time, but water
gives them strength. There's one more rule I realized only later. They don't chase. They reposition. And if you think you've lost them, it probably means they're already ahead of you. The building is still standing. The drainage project was delayed. Budget issues, paperwork, no urgency. Sometimes, late at night, I think about how quiet that place must be now. And I wonder, if the water level rises again, will they rise with it? And if they ever adapt to staying dry, there won't be a safe floor left. That's why I'm telling you this, not to scare you, but so you understand something simple. Some places aren't haunted. They're occupied. And we're not always at the top of the food chain.